Good afternoon. Thank you so much for the humbling introduction. The President's Office Rep, Mr. Dr. Ngobo, the Provincial Chair of CIGFARO, Mr. Zakwe, representative from SALGA, representative from the CFO Foundation, from SAICA, from DUT, and you guys, beautiful people in this room, good afternoon. Ninjan. Sapil. I'm a bit short for this mic, right? Yeah, okay, this is fine now. As they, okay, no, I prefer to stand here. I'm shy. Yeah, it's fine. Thank you. I'm just going to tell you a bit about myself and my journey, not just the work journey, but just my life journey, because I want you guys to relate to that journey, and hopefully my experiences, or through my experiences and where I am now, you can learn a thing or two to apply and combine with what you know and what you're good at, and you can make a meaningful life where you're trying to go. So whilst growing up, I moved around a lot, and I would have found that the moving around, as well as the fact that I didn't spend a lot of time in my childhood with my parents. First, I didn't know my dad. I only met him when I was 10, and he died when I was 13. And my mom, I think I stopped staying with my mom when I was in grade 8. So I would have thought all of that obviously would just be a disadvantage and a life of doom, but I'm enjoying the fruits of that in my life right now, obviously without celebrating those issues. I'm very adaptable, I'm independent, and I can relate to people at various levels. Like I can be rural in a split second, and I can be with polished English in another second. I can be Sotho right now, and I can be like hardcore isiZulu at this moment. I can be township, but also you wouldn't think I'm not from Mhlanga when you meet me there. So that moving around a lot has had its fruits. However, there are downsides which I'm constantly trying to work on, like the fact that my fears and anxieties are mostly from how I've grown up. So if I don't take heed to that, I might become a person that I don't need to be. So those are things that I need to address, as well as the behaviors that I've learned through the experiences that I've had growing up. So I was born here in Durban. My parents are both from Lamontville. Had my primary education in a little bit, first 2 grades in Pietermaritzburg, rural PMB, in a place called Ilenskop, Hlongwane. And then I moved to Joburg, Soweto. I attended a couple of schools, Soweto. We moved around with my mom, so I probably did 1 school a year. At most, maybe 2 grades in that particular school. Then for high school, I was back here at Lemont 1 year, Lamont, and then back to rural PMB for the 3 years. So that made me actually very open-minded, and although my high school context was not very stimulating, especially the part when I was in rural PMB, because I had traveled so much, I knew that there was a life after high school that I should pursue. Unlike my peers in rural PMB, I mean, I existed amongst a group of girls who were taught that you just go to school so that you can grow up, but you're waiting for your husband who will come and whisk you away. So our realities were not very different from each other. but also they were very sure not to prepare us or to give us a dream, career woman dream that today, probably when people see me, they think, oh, she looks like a successful career woman. I grew up in a context that didn't prepare me for that. So I had to rely on, I guess, the grace of God more than anything is what then transformed that context. I think similar to maybe your different backgrounds as well, when you look at where you grew up and where you are today and the inspiration that you give to the people from where you come from, you can also attribute that to the grace of God. So my upbringing gave me the diversity and the context that I use every day to relate to my staff. I own a business, and to my colleagues where I do work professionally, and my community, hence the social projects that I do. It gives me the spectacles that I actually wear to actually view life. You know, I owe my empathy and my hard work and my dedication to how I grew up and my background and where I come from, and that for me is very priceless. Well, thanks to my great teachers in rural PMB, I did manage to get my minimum required points to go into UKZN. I studied BCom because I was a commerce learner, so for me it was default that I would go in and study BCom. But that's as far as I knew what I wanted to do. So I paid my acceptance fee of 500 Rand, and then the rest I left to UTEFSA. We called it TEFSA back in the day, NSFAS. So, and thank God for that financial assistance that gave me one last thing to worry about. My tertiary journey introduced me to good people. I found very good friends. And I think I'm happy that God introduced me to people that I could live my life with the 3 years in varsity. I mean, we've seen a lot of young people's lives go south when they go and they get the independence that comes with tertiary, or when you just leave home. So the people that I met and the characters, I guess the homes that they grew up in, actually shaped my own journey. In terms of spending so much time with them. So I'm very grateful for the friends that I had. Sadly, one of them passed away last year in January, but I hold them dear in my life. I attribute a lot to them. My tertiary journey also introduced me to the CA profession, because the first few days of orientation, when we were asking each other, so what are you here to do? I'm like, when everybody was saying, no, I want to be a CA, I'm like, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're all going to be CAs. That's the first time I found out about CA. So I'm like, you know, if my friends are doing CA thing, Nami, that's what I'm doing. So that's how I was introduced to the CA brand. And I pursued it. It wasn't going to be a very easy journey, but I was set. So financial assistance that I got did not really give me imali to study postgraduate. So I knew that I had to find a job after my degree. But more importantly also, I knew that the poverty that I came from did not give me the luxury of saying I can study something full-time which was available part-time if I could get a job. So I went with getting a job, and I actually found a training contract. I got a training contract with SNG. They're now called SNG. It was called CIGFARO at that time. I really worked hard during articles. I was one trainee that was reliable for everything. I would be in the office early. I would leave late. I would be trusted with complex sections because I wanted to prove myself. I don't know, maybe at the back of my mind, I didn't want to lose the job. So I wanted to work extra hard. But then I did not strike the balance because I was still studying. I was still doing my honors, CTA. So I did not strike the balance. I would push myself so hard at my work and neglect my studies during the year. And then at the end of the year, I would actually try to squeeze that. During study leave, I would try and squeeze the whole year's worth of work. And you guys know how that ends. So I ended up repeating my CTA or honors a couple of times. But I finally got it. Today I have it, and I never have to mention to people when I tell them I'm a CA how many times I had to do my honors. So it's okay, there's light at the end of the tunnel. That part of my journey really gained me a great work ethic. People who've worked with me, they know that even if I say so myself, I work very hard, I've got good work ethic. And I work very hard, I'm dedicated. And I also learned that when you commit yourself to multiple things, you have to give yourself time to give attention to all of them, because one of them will fall. So I'm sure most of you here are working and studying at the same time and doing other projects. Some of you maybe have side hustles. And you know, if you don't balance it, if you don't strike the balance, one of them has to be redone over and over again. And I also learned that it's very easy to think that you are going somewhere just because you are succeeding operationally, but whilst you are failing on the critical job progression requirement. So I was the best performing trainee, but was I going to get the promotion? Was I going to be a manager without my CTA? No. My manager would be like, oh, you work very hard. Can you pass? can you pass? So it's very important that you know what is the key requirement for you to progress with your career. And then be committed, I mean, that's standard, but don't leave out the critical, because you'll then be left in a dead-end job and you will not go anywhere, because you're not doing the bare minimum that is important for you to actually progress with your career. Articles shaped my professional career very much. I learned to respect the hierarchy. There's hierarchy. I'm not sure if they enforce it where you work, but in articles, you know that as a first-year trainee, you have to make the tea for the team. You have to photocopy. Okay, I don't know these days if people actually make copies of the minute book, but you be the one that actually makes copies of the minute book, and then your senior just tells you, can you go make the copies of the August meetings minutes, and you go, and then you come back, and what's this? It's August minutes. No, I meant July. And then you have to go back. I learned that when the senior comes in and you're working in a boardroom and there's no more chairs to sit, I learned that I had to get up and give up my chair for the senior to sit. And I still do that even now, even if I'm the most senior person in the room. When somebody comes in, I'm the first one to get up and be like, oh, and then I'm like, yeah, go get a chair to another person. So it actually builds your character. Like I've seen in the different environments that I've worked, I mean, those who have worked with me at eThekwini particularly, I would always comment that you see a difference between somebody who has served articles and somebody who has not. I'm not trying to throw shade or cast shade to other ways of training, but they really make us like robots. So you can then see how that filters through. You obviously, when it happens, you think we are abused or anything, but when you grow up, you can actually see those traits and how you're using them in your life, and just the difference in the person that you are. I mean, you would go into a client's office, and whilst they're in the phone, they would swear at you and tell you how stupid you are. So even now, I don't just walk into somebody's office when they're on the phone. This other time, I was sitting and the client decided to take a call or do something while I was sitting there, and I decided to read the document that was on the table. Yo, never do that, guys. It was like, is that your document? Why are you reading my stuff? So, you know, I've learned so much through just respecting the powers that be. And they've now shaped the person that I am. I may not be the humblest of people, but professionally, I try my best to actually apply what I've learned. So after articles, I went into governance, risk and control, worked for different organizations, including Transnet, as well as consulting in internal audits, and ended up at eThekwini doing internal audits. So that has actually grown me as a professional holistically. I progressed very quickly after I got my CTA, and I started climbing the corporate ladder. And I got exposure to the structures that you were mentioning, whether it's executive committees or boards, whether internally or externally. At this stage of my career, I was very comfortable in my craft. I knew what I was good at and what I really struggled and needed to work harder on. I also learned that you need to be firm. Auditing teaches you to be firm, because before you actually raise a finding, you go and you find the evidence, and your senior wants you to find the evidence and make a copy of it and whatever, so you know what you found. But the client will deny that thing. They will say it was never there. They will sign something that was not signed and present it back to you. So it teaches you to be firm, even if you're dealing with the mayor. And you're like, with all due respect, Mr. Mayor, it's not like that. MFMA doesn't say that. Because you know that you've been taught it and you know what is right. So whatever training that you do, I hope it gives you that firmness. Because being in public sector finance, you are actually walking against the traffic. If where you work, all of you are walking the same direction, I don't know about you. Because when you are a public sector finance specialist, you get a lot of resistance if you're doing things right, especially in local government. So if you're not getting resistance, it's not going to be me who says it, but check yourself. So check yourself, but then you need to teach yourself how to be firm, but still being respectful in all that you do. I learned that as long as you can support your story with facts, then you can stand for it, and you can stand against any authority. I actually observed also that we work in environments where you're actually hired for your brains, but to actually use it, they have to be requested. So you don't just use your brains, especially in public sector. Hey. We know you're smart, we saw it on your CV. We know you know everything. We know you know the law. We'll tell you when we need the law. And we'll tell you which version of the law we want. So you must learn then to adapt. But so don't let that faze you. You must know one version of the law, and you must know how to say it. I did grow some traits that are required when you are guarding the public purse that you guys are doing. You must learn to just balance. You must know, sometimes you don't have to make the person, I'm like, everyone that knows me knows, Xoliswa will tell you when you're wrong. But I learned, I'm like, I actually don't have to tell everyone that they're wrong, because they know they're wrong. So the aggression starts when you then want to be the one that tells them that they are wrong. Sometimes you don't have to do it. You won't do it. You know it's wrong. But you just keep quiet and look. And let someone, because they know they're wrong. They want to see if you can see, or if hopefully you can help them do it. So sometimes you don't even have to waste your energy and be like, yeah, but this section, this section of the MFMA, here's the MFMA, I keep it in my bag. It says this, no, you like doing this, no. Why are you getting hyped up? Just say, no, that thing doesn't work like that. In local government, we don't work like that. And the person says, no, but it's been done. The other trainee before you was nicer, and they did this. You're like, okay. Excuse me, I need to go to the bathroom. And you go. Sometimes you just need to let someone believe they are right when they are wrong. It's not your place to try and make everyone know and stand on top of the mountain and say, you are wrong. But there are times when you need to do that. When you are employed to advise and your advice is sought, give the right advice. Tell them the correct way is 1, 2, 3. But don't try and be Uzoro, Van Damme. It's not necessary, especially when your well-being is at stake. But definitely don't reserve the truth. State the truth, but state it once. And that is enough, contrary to what you see, people pretending they didn't hear you, but it is enough. So in 2017, I had a strong urge to start a personal project, a passion project. So I'm not sure where it came from, because I never took myself as a person that would actually start their own business. I can't sell to save my life. I'm just comfortable doing, tell me what you want and tell me when you need it, and that's when I'm gonna do it. So I guess it was maybe God also directing me to say, you know what, start looking, because you and your big mouth, you'll need a company that you will run. So start it. So I started that in 2017. So I grew an interest in clothing manufacturing. It led me to buy clothing manufacturing assets, and I started using it. Before I knew it, I had employees that wanted me to pay them, but they were not working. The whole month they would sit and not work. They would make 7,000 rand a month, and my expenses at the time were like 30,000. And I'm like, guys, how many clothes did you sell? They're like, no one came. And then I had to pay. So at some point I was even sharing my salary with my staff, and I'm like, no, this is not working. I knew that at some point I had to choose. I need to see if my passion project, I can actually give it due attention and make it work, or I need to just be a full-time employee that I was and forget about side things. So I did make a pick. I think the public sector was not even giving me a run for my money. I did want to stay. I am still actually servicing the public sector as a consultant. However, I felt my business needed me, so I made the jump. So, and that point was in January 2020. I was jobless, and I reported to my office. I had only savings that could cover me 3 months. So I was like, no, I can do this, you know. By March, I would have scored a big contract, and I can get finance. I'm gonna go to Italy, I'm gonna go wherever, I'm gonna get funding. Guess what happened in March? COVID. I had one batch of debit orders left when the president made that announcement. You know, I was with my mom and my kids. I said, excuse me. I went into my bedroom and I cried. I'm like, what's gonna happen now? Like, how can this guy close the country? I mean, who does that? You know, I never thought that something that was so out of my control could actually just come and say. And God has a very, like, if you guys haven't realized how much sense of humor God has in your lives, God will like, you know, you've got plan, 3 months, ne? Okay. And then 3 days before month 3, he's like, how's your plan going, my child? So I felt sick. I was sick in my gut. And, you know, I just didn't know what to do. And sometimes it's okay. Guys, sometimes it's okay. You studied, you went to varsity, and maybe you're the main problem solver in your house or in your family. But sometimes you won't know what to do. And that's fine. And that's where the sense of God that I'm talking about comes into play. When God sees that, no, or so you've admitted you don't know, okay, let me then show you what is in store. So within 2 weeks, I got into the mask bandwagon, but already that market was saturated. So luckily, I got some uniform orders here and there, but you know, it was not enough for the amounts that I needed. My personal finances took it off. I'm like, I must just not check my bank statement right now. I will not be employed anyway. If somebody is to look at my finances, it was bad. It was really bad. So that's how COVID impacted me personally. I had all sorts of stress and anxiety. So I started looking, but I never at one point regretted my decision to leave full-time employment. In the public sector. I was like, no, I don't need a full-time job. My family has never seen, I've never seen my family so shocked at someone. Like, you know, when you feel people are feeling sorry for you, but like, I don't know, maybe they had an intervention meeting to say who must come tell me that I'm being ridiculous, but nobody came, so I guess they were scared. But I could sense that people are like, girl, can you see what's happening in your life right now? Like, where is that CA certificate of yours? Like, get a job, you know? At some point I was with my mom and we met this guy, I think he was a councillor in one of the municipalities, Richmond. And I was already running my company, and then this guy is like, oh, it's like, no, it's my daughter. She's actually looking for a job, and I'm like, am I? He's like, yeah, if you guys are hiring, and I'm like, wow, your family will disown you when you go poor, I tell you now. They will disown you. They'll be like, ooh, if you don't bring the bread, then don't even try and talk. But we love them, right? We love our families. I love my family. But fast forward today, I mean, that was 2.5 years of hell. I don't even want to tell the story, how I survived, I don't know. But I'm here now, things are looking up. I mean, XO Collection, that's my clothing manufacturing business. It supports, it manufactures for a local brand called Muse. I'm wearing Muse today. They have a store in Palito, and then they've just opened a store on the 15th of what's this month? June, in Gateway. So we manufacture for Muse. We then also manufacture well-known commercial brands of workwear. We make security shirts, and we supply one of the major manufacturers of workwear in KZN, Durban Overall, there in Ladysmith. So that perseverance in those days, there were nights when I would wake up and my sanity comes back and I'm like, oh no, I'm awake. It's the 23rd. And I mean, I have a psychologist. I'll speak to you about mental health a bit later on. Please do signal. I tend to just... so my psychologist is like, Xoliswa, you cannot avoid you can't, by stressing, put money in your bank account by the 25th. You are that kind of a person when you've been told that a tsunami is coming and people are emptying their houses. You want to stand with your arms open. You're like, no tsunami is going to touch my house. So by you stressing, do you put money in the bank account? And I realized the relationship between my stresses and my poor productivity. I would like hit the 20th, nothing will happen in my company. I would be so grumpy and I would feel like sleeping because I'm worried about the 25th when the debit orders will bounce and people start calling me, and then I've got employees that I need to pay and all of those things. But now I'm here. I'm not saying that I don't have those stresses anymore, but they're definitely not like the time that they were. And I'm grateful for that. And I opened a professional services company. It's called Accelerate. Accelerate also does professional services like accounting and stuff. So 3 years later, I'm finally managing to strike the balance that I was hoping for when I left. So persistence and resistance is the key ingredient. I'm gonna skip through because I want to actually tell you the lessons that I want to share with you through the life that I've learned. So my entrepreneurship journey has taught me a lot about life and a lot about people, about myself around me. I learned that education and experience can only take you so far, but what takes you further and what differentiates the winners from the rest of the people is courage and resilience. We all here have degrees. We all here have experience, we've worked, whatever. But what makes a difference is that who's brave enough? Who's brave enough to go and tell the CFO that that note does not look like that? That fruitless and wasteful expenditure note, I will add that amount you are saying I must not add. Who has the resilience after being pushed back time and time again, you go back and you do it, wake up and do it. That's what makes a difference. Not your education, not your experience, unfortunately. But it's important because people look at the paper. But what gets you through is that courage and resilience. Okay, so sometimes things will not happen for you at the time that you want them, and it's because you are not ready. Sometimes you'll comfort yourself and say, they are not ready for me. No, it's you. You are not ready to receive that. At least that version of you is not ready to receive what God has in store for you. So when you do not understand the work of God's hand, at least understand the intention of his heart, that he loves you enough. So definitely what you're going through cannot be for your disadvantage. Be more than just a professional. Challenge yourself to be something bigger than yourself. You know, sometimes when you're working, we're contributing, you're the first one to raise your hand. But what about Maktiwa, go and clean the toilets? Are you the first one to raise your hand? So challenge yourself to offer the things that is not easy for you to offer. You know, and that actually builds you. Don't dim your lights or let anyone tell you that you are less value than you are. Be a mentor. It's very therapeutic when you mentor people. It takes you away from your own personal challenges to actually hear that people have bigger and real challenges than you. Love yourself enough to put yourself first. It's not selfish when you put yourself first. You must love yourself enough and take mental health very seriously. Get a psychologist, especially with those ethical dilemmas, the things those psychologists know. So you can't trust someone like you trust your psychologist. So have someone to talk to that will judge you for your own good. If they don't judge you, please change your psychologist. Don't go to those ones that say, I see, how does that make you feel? No, change them. Go to a psychologist that is like, because you are not mentally ill. So a psychologist must pitch their support as a life coach of some sort. You know, they need to support the professional in you and give out the best in you. Romans 5 verses 3 to 5 says, not only so, but also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character. Character, hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured out in our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. I'm not done. So what I loved about working in local government, you're very best positioned to actually make visible change to our society. So take the responsibility seriously. And depending on where you work, you actually have greater responsibility than your peers that are in the private sector, contrary to what they'd like to make you believe. And the hierarchy teaches you to humble yourself and respect. As a council, and you respect that. You know, you learn to respect and you learn to be a humble person. You also learn to navigate politics, which is a very good skill to have in South Africa. And you are guiding the public purse, which is an important job, and you have been chosen to do that. My 2 cents worth with regards to local government, stay in your lane, be a professional, not a politician. Unfortunately, most of the roads in government, specifically in local government, is in finance. It's not engineering, it's not SCM included, obviously, in finance. But it's your colleagues that you walk around the corridors. Those are the ones who sent those service providers to call you, because they're the ones that saw that the file was in your desk. So I'm not saying hate your colleagues, but I'm just saying be open-minded and know that it's not you guys against the world. The world is in finance. We like to blame politicians and say, but they don't even have access to the system. They can only say, Xoliswa, I want to go to Dubai. Okay, bye. They can't do anything. And most of the time, they don't even have a gun to your head. We decide to do those things. Be your own subject matter expert. Know the law, especially as it relates to your work. And make sure you do things that are right. And then know when you are being made to turn a blind eye. If you don't know the law, how will you know when you are being asked to turn a blind eye on the law? Which law? And create a community of practice. Organizations like CIGFARO and the community of practice that you have, use them to actually consult on those technical issues. And then get a trusted relationship for those ethical dilemmas. Learn to be streetwise and be politically correct. Know how to pick up when your colleague is dishonest. And you don't, like I said earlier, you don't have to show them that ngiyakwazi ukuthi uyisigebengu. You know, you're really like, oh, okay, you know that you never trust anything that this one says. But you can still have coffee with them. You know, you don't have to be all grumpy at them and whatever, because they will tell the people, the powers that be, that you are resisting. So learn to be streetwise, work in an environment, you're in a tough environment, but it's workable. You can work and you can navigate. The people who have worked all the way from being a trainee, all the way to being a CFO or being a municipal manager, they learned, and we can't assume they are corrupt. They've learned how to exist in such a volatile, and that's a skill, and that skill will take you far as a person. So learn it. Last few sentences. And sometimes, okay, I think I've already covered this one that says you mustn't speak too much when you're being pressured. And then remember that you are working against corruption, and it's never going to be easy. I know that there are a lot of good officials in local government. I do hope that you guys are some of them. Thank you.